Hi, this is Don Farber with Vineyard Soft Corporation, and I'd like to welcome you to this training session on the KnowledgeSync solution. The topic for this session will be the creation of an event's alert messages. And it's important to note that this is the first of multiple training sessions on alert message design. It's also worth noting that for this training session, we'll focus on an event's email alert message. However, the options that we'll discuss also apply to many of the other alert delivery methods available in KnowledgeSync, including faxing, paging, text messaging, and so on. Now for this session, we're going to continue our work in our ERP, or accounting application, and we're going to focus on an event that identifies invoices that are overdue for payment. Now, before we can begin designing an event, we need to ask ourselves the following question. How many alert messages do we want this event to create when its conditions are met? Generally speaking, you have three options. For example, with the event for overdue invoices, we might want KnowledgeSync to generate a separate alert message for each overdue invoice. That's option number one. Option number two is to have KnowledgeSync generate a single alert message which contains the details of all overdue invoices. And option number three is rather a compromise between options 1 and 2. It lets an event configure an individual alert message that contains a group of similar records. For example, I might want KnowledgeSync to send each customer a single email that lists all of their overdue invoices. Or I might want KnowledgeSync to send each of my sales reps one email message that shows all of their customers' overdue invoices. And we'll take a look at configuring an event for each of these three different scenarios. So let's start off by opening our overdue invoices event. Now, in previous training sessions, we've talked about the design of an event's query, as the query is what identifies the underlying condition that we want KnowledgeSync to look for. In the case of this event, it's utilizing a query called AR Open Invoices that are overdue for payment. Now we're going to skip ahead to the Email tab. By virtue of associating that query with this event, KnowledgeSync has access to a number of fields of data about the corresponding overdue invoices, such as the balance of the invoice, the customer's name, the invoice due date, the salesperson associated with the invoice, and so on. These fields of data that you see here are all drawn directly from the corresponding query that is associated with this event. And so, if you find that you need to include one or more fields of data that are not present on this list, you simply need to go back into the query associated with this event and add the appropriate data fields to the selected columns for that query. But let's now go and talk about the event's alert message. Once again here, we're talking about the configuration of the email alert message. As you can see, we've specified a subject of the email, and we've also specified the content of the email alert itself. It's worth noting that the email alert can be formatted in either plain text, as this one is, or in HTML format. Now this event, as it's currently configured, will send out a separate email alert message for each overdue invoice that meets this event's criteria. And so you can see the opening line of our alert message reads, "The following accounts receivable invoice is overdue for payment," and following that we show a number of fields of information about the corresponding invoice, such as the customer number, name, invoice number, and so on. As you can see in the alert message, any field of data that is enclosed with curly braces indicates that this value is being retrieved from the underlying database. Now, as I mentioned, the way this event alert message is configured currently, KnowledgeSync will send out a separate alert for each record that meets this event's criteria. In other words, one email alert for each overdue invoice. Now let's consider changing this alert message so that KnowledgeSync generates just a single alert message for all overdue invoices. The steps that we need to take are pretty simple. First off, we might want to change the opening line of our message text to read the following accounts receivable invoices are overdue for payment. Now, when you are configuring a KnowledgeSync alert to repeat the details of multiple records that meet the event's criteria, what you need to do is identify the part of the alert message that you want KnowledgeSync to repeat. In this case, we certainly do not need to repeat this opening line, but we do wish to repeat the detail section. And so we will go to the line just above where our details begin. We will go up to our list of available values for use in the message content, grab the scroll bar, and scroll down to the very bottom of the list. And we will choose the command begin repeat. That tells KnowledgeSync that the following lines are going to be repeated for each record, each invoice that meets this event's criteria. And where you have begin repeat, you also need to have end repeat. So we'll go down to the end of our detail section and specify end repeat. That is all we need to do in order to change this alert from a one email message per invoice to one email message that contains the details of all matching invoices. So let's save and close this event for right now. And at this point, I wish to talk about our third scenario, which is that compromise between options 1 and 2, where I want KnowledgeSync to generate individual email alerts that contain multiple invoices. And specifically for this training session, I want KnowledgeSync to generate a separate email alert for each of my sales reps who have customers with overdue invoices. In other words, I want to group my records together by salesperson. Now, the reason I'm going over this concept is that when you want KnowledgeSync to group records together, the first thing that you need to do is to make sure that the query that the event is using is configured to sort or group the records in the same fashion, i.e., I wish to group records together by salesperson. So I'm going to make a note of the query's name, AR open invoices, overdue for payment. I'm going to go back to my query definitions branch, choose that particular query, open it, and go to the Sorting tab. Again, it's important to note that if you want an event to group its records together within individual alert messages, you first need to make sure that the event's query is sorting or grouping those records together by that same value. In this scenario, I want to sort or group my records together by salesperson. So I'm going to locate my salesperson field, tell KnowledgeSync that I wish to sort or group the matching records by salesperson. And that's all I need to do on the query level. I'm going to save and close that query. And now I can finish this process by configuring the corresponding event. So let's go once again into my overdue invoices. If I look at the email alert message, I still want the message to read as before. The following AR invoices are overdue for payment. I do wish to utilize the begin repeat and end repeat as we did before, but I need to make one final adjustment. I need to tell KnowledgeSync to break to a new alert message when KnowledgeSync encounters a new salesperson. Thus, all of salesperson A, all of their customers' overdue invoices are going to be grouped together and repeated in a single email alert. And then all of salesperson B's customers with overdue invoices are likewise going to be grouped together in a single email alert. So again, what I need to specify here is what's referred to as the message break field. When do I want KnowledgeSync to break to a new message? And most typically, when you're grouping records together in this fashion, you'll find that the most common circumstance is to group records together by recipient. And so the message breaking logic is actually specified over on the Subscribers tab. And so I'm going to click on the Subscribers tab, and then from there go to my Advanced tab. The field that we're interested in is the first field in the top grid, and you'll notice that the description of that grid reads Message Break Field. And so I want KnowledgeSync to break to a new message whenever the value of the salesperson field changes. So I'm going to find my salesperson code field, and that's all I need to specify here. I want KnowledgeSync to break to a new message when in the resulting set of records that meet this event's criteria, when KnowledgeSync encounters a new salesperson. And so simply by doing that, I have now configured this event to create separate email alert messages for each sales rep receiving a single email that shows all of their customers' overdue invoices. And so let's save and close this event. And so we've addressed the 3 different options in grouping alert messages. And that is option number 1, I want KnowledgeSync to send a separate alert for each record that meets an event's criteria. Option 2 is to have KnowledgeSync generate a single alert message that contains the details of all matching records. And option number 3, that which we just walked through, is the ability to have KnowledgeSync group similar records together within individual alert messages. Now, before we wrap up this training session, just a couple of last notes I wish to make. And that is that when you are configuring a KnowledgeSync alert message or a KnowledgeSync event, and you wish to make use of the begin repeat and end repeat commands, as we've done here on the email tab, it's important to note that begin repeat and end repeat can appear only once within an individual event. In other words, if I use them here on the email tab, I cannot also use them within the fax tab, the page tab, or any of the other tabs. Now, you do have the option to have KnowledgeSync automatically use the same alert message details for multiple delivery methods. By that, I mean if we like the format of our email alert message, we can go to our fax tab and simply tell KnowledgeSync to utilize the email alert message. And that is simply by specifying the following command. Equals email underscore message underscore text is the command in KnowledgeSync that says for this alert delivery method, faxing in this particular instance, we want KnowledgeSync to utilize the same alert content as was specified back on the email tab. And that is one way essentially of being able to repeat multiple matching records in a single alert message, all within multiple delivery methods. But again, I do wish to repeat that the begin repeat and end repeat commands can only appear once within a given KnowledgeSync event. And my second and final note about the use of begin repeat and end repeat, and that is as follows. If you are configuring an event to utilize the Actions tab to write information back into an application database, as KnowledgeSync has the ability to add or update records within an application, as well as sending alert messages. If you're going to be using this Actions or Workflow module, you must not be using begin repeat and end repeat within an event. And the reason for that is that by using begin repeat and end repeat in an event in KnowledgeSync, you do no longer have the ability to execute workflow on the individual records that meet an event's criteria. So again, quite simply, if you need to configure an event to execute an action, a workflow, such as adding or updating a record within a database, that event must not make use of begin repeat and end repeat. So in fact, you might have some circumstances where your alert message is configured as one event, making use of begin repeat and end repeat, and then you might need to create a second event utilizing the same query that simply executes a workflow action on each record that meets the event's criteria. Okay, that certainly is a lot to digest all at once, so let's end this training session here. We do very much recommend that you watch the ensuing training sessions on alert message design in the KnowledgeSync solution. But for now, I'll thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you in a future KnowledgeSync training session. Thanks very much.